And it was a great conversation. Probably the shortest conversation Pastor Rob and I've ever had. He said, Pastor Joe. I said, yes. He goes, you're preaching wrong. I said, I am. He goes, yep, goodbye. I didn't get a chance to ask why or nothing else. That's the way it was. So I got to thinking, and I got to ask the Lord, okay, I got like short notice here, and I'm not good on short notice thing. I like to have time to prepare. So I asked him what he had in mind for me, and it was funny because one of the things that Pastor Rob got talking about today was the political arena and how messed up it is out there. I mean, it's just about as messed up as our economy is today. And Pastor Bob keeps talking about 2018, and 2018 is going to begin for us now. I don't know if he remembers this or not, but 42 or 40 years of working for the federal government's year begins October 1st. This is 2018. Now, why they did that, I don't know, but it's always been that way. So we already are in 2018. So the question on everybody's mind this morning seems to be, with everything going on in the world, what's happening next? You know, how's this going to affect our family and me? But we have certain promises that we get to fall back on. And that's really what I want to talk about today. What can you expect in 2018? To me, I expect to have all my needs met. Rob, can you put up Psalms 23? I thought you and Pastor Rob was going to preach this for me this morning, and then he took a right turn, and I'm like, okay. Psalm 23:1 says, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. This was David's declaration. This was his formal announcement of a state of condition. It was his expression of confidence in the Lord. It was a process of making known one's thoughts or feelings. David himself was a shepherd, so he had a shepherd's heart. He took care of his sheep. He took them to green pastures. He didn't take them to any desert land. He took them to green pastures. When a bear came after him, he rose up and killed the bear. When a lion came after him, he rose up and killed the lion. He was there for them. And David knew that God is a much more faithful servant than he could ever be. So how much greater is he going to take care of his sheep? You and I. It was in the protective, you have to bear with me, I have to read some of this. It was that protective and caring for a sheep that he wrote the opening of, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. The Hebrew word translated want means to lack, to be without, to decrease, to be lacking, to have a need. So basically he's saying, I will not be without, I will not be decreased, I will not be diminished. The Living Bible says, because the Lord is my shepherd, I have everything I need. How many believe you got everything you need? Amen. How many have seen everything you need? Doesn't mean we don't have it, does it?
That's right.
Just because we haven't seen it doesn't mean that we don't have it. See, God is the supplier himself, and our confidence in our future is not on what this economic or political arena does.
That's right.
It's what God does.
Right.
It's where our faith is anchored in. He is the shepherd. He's got a long history of supplying needs. He supplied manna in the wilderness and brought water out of a rock. He took 5,000 fish, or he fed 5,000 to, yeah, 5,000 fish.
Wow.
That's a fish fry. He took 2 fish and 5 loaves and fed 5,000 people. Actually, that was the men. There was more, but his word hasn't changed, and he says that he'll take care of us. If he did it once, he'll do it again. There's actually, I think, a Southern gospel song. If he did it once, he'll do it again. If he did it for Aaron, he's going to do it for me.
That's
If he did it for Pastor Deb, he's going to do it for me. He's going to do it for you. He is the supplier of everything. Go to 1 Kings 17. We're going to take a look at how God worked in some ways for supplying people's needs. I gotta have some competition here.
Looks like it.
King Ahab and Jezebel had led Israel into idolatry and judgment. It says that God had brought a drought on the land. It was a financial disaster. It was affecting everything. There was not a lot of handicappers back then. In fact, in 1 Kings 16, don't go there, it says Ahab did more to provoke the Lord God of Israel to anger than all the kings of Israel who were before him. But watch how God took care of Elijah. In the middle of all this thing, in the middle of an economic disaster, when everything's going wrong, his servant Elijah, the first thing he did is he sent him to the brook Cherith, and he had ravens feed him. 1 Kings 17:6 says, the ravens brought him bread and meat in the morning, and bread and meat in the evening, and he drank from the brook. Now, this is not exactly a five-star hotel, but God still met his needs. I think most people in church today be complaining because they didn't have a bed to sleep in, or they didn't have eggs to go to fish or whatever. But the point was, in the middle of all this, God took care of Elijah. Now, who would come up with a survival plan of going to a brook without taking food or anything? God did. Elijah obeyed him. God told him, he says, I know the plans I have for you, plans to prosper you and not harm you, and plans to give you hope in the future. And I believe God wants us to hear that today. There's a lot of things going on in this world. There's a lot of things going on in our personal lives. There's a lot of things going on in your lives that I don't need to know about, and I don't need to know about. We've created a prayer circle. And I believe, and Pastor Bob can correct me if he wants to, but we got a prayer circle, Sue and I, and Hank and Sheila. But I believe that prayer circle is inside of a larger circle that encompasses this entire body. So when we're praying, it's not just praying in our prayer circle, it's expanding. God cover all our needs. The whole body here. If we abide faithful to him, he's going to be faithful to us in 2018. Really? But you know what? It's a good thing. It's a good thing that Elijah had faith in God, not the brook. Because guess what? The brook dried up. Didn't matter. God had another plan. He took him to another provider. He still took care of him. And in our lives, there's times when the brooks are going to dry up. That's not the time to lose faith.
That's right.
Today, Jennifer's brook is dried up big time. But today's not the day for her to lose faith, and she won't. She's got strong people standing around her that's going to help her, and she's going to come through this. She's not staying here. She's coming through this. Look at the second source of the supply. 1 Kings 17, verses 8, start at verse 8, go through 16. Here's the second source of supply. Then the word of the Lord came to him, saying, Arise, go to Zarephath, which belongs to Sidon, and dwell there. See, I have commanded a widow there to provide for you. So he arose and went to Zarephath, and when he came to the gate of the city, indeed a widow was gathering sticks. And he called to her and said, Please bring me a little cup of water that I may drink. And as she was going to get it, he called to her and said, Please bring me a morsel of bread in your hand. So she said, As the Lord your God lives, I do not have bread, only a handful of flour in a bin, and a little oil in a jar. And see, I'm gathering a couple of sticks, that I may go in and prepare it for myself and my son, that we may eat and die. Wow, what a provider. But Elijah said to her, Do not fear, go and do as you said, but make a small cake from it first and bring it to me. And afterwards make some for yourself and your son. For thus say the Lord, the God of Israel, the bin of flour shall not be used up, nor shall the jar of oil run dry, until the day the Lord sends rain on the earth. So she went away and did according to the word of Elijah, and she and he and her household ate for many days. The bin of the flour was not used up, nor did the jar of the oil run dry, according to the word of the Lord which he spoke to Elijah. Notice a couple of things here. This was an unexpected provision. Can you imagine what he felt? And he finds a widow who's got no visible means of supporting himself or herself, much less her son. You know, most of us be going, you got a sense of humor here, Lord, but what's going on here? Who's really providing for me? But it didn't discourage him. See, she obeyed his instructions. And in doing so, she became the provider. How many times have we been in a position where maybe we didn't feel we had anything to give? But we got instructions and we were obedient and we got blessed and blessed others as a result of it. See, she had to give first. In order to receive her blessing, she had to give first. There's times that we're going to be like that widow. We're going to have to follow instructions. We're going to have to stand in faith and trust. And we're going to have to do our part first so that we can be the provider for the one that God's put in our path. A mentality that says, I don't have very much to give, is a mentality that you won't have very much to give. If you don't start believing you got something to give, you'll never get past that mentality.
Amen.
Her obedience yielded her investment. Psalms 11, 24, 25, you don't have to go there, Rob, but it sets forth the principle. There is one who scatters, yet increases more, and there is one who withholds more than is right, but it leads to poverty. The generous soul will be made rich, and he who waters will also be watered. God's provision came to this widow because she was obedient and stepped out even beyond her own needs. Now that's asking a lot. And I'll be honest with you, there's been times when I felt like I was supposed to do something, or I was supposed to give something, especially in the early walk, and I'm thinking, I don't have enough gas to get to work if I do that. And I didn't follow and do what I was supposed to do. And I cheated myself out of the blessing. As I grew, there's other times when that happened, and I don't know how, because if you calculated the mileage, it said no. But that speedometer didn't move for 2 days. I mean, not a speedometer, it moved for me, it moved. I took lessons from Kim. No, actually, I could give Kim a run for her money. I just didn't want to say that. I'd love to put her in a stock car.
Didn't you race?
I spent 20 years racing stock cars, so yeah. But the gas gauge didn't move is what I was trying to say. Now, I calculated the mileage, and it still said I got the same amount of gas mileage that I always got. And yet, somehow, that tank ran on fumes for 2 days until payday. Because I finally learned to be obedient to what he said and trust him and don't worry about it. But there was something she had to do even before that. And we've talked about that a lot around here. It said, in verse 13, it says, do not fear. Well, we talked about that a lot. Pastor Vince has talked a lot about fear and everything. If she had not gotten over the fear first, she would have never been obedient and never got to the blessing. Fear paralyzes faith. When fear and self-preservation dominate your thinking, faith cannot operate. Pastor Rob gave a perfect example again this morning. And he was honest. He's never been more scared than he was that day in that emergency room. But he knew enough to put his hand on Crystal's stomach and say, this baby will be healthy. And he kept saying, this baby will be healthy. He was at a crossroads, and he did not let that fear take over and dominate. And look at the blessing that Pastor Bob and Pastor Deb got out of it.
That's right. That's right.
Pastor Rob has too. He's just got to get a little older to really appreciate the blessings. There's some of the things at this age that you wonder at times, but trust me, you are really blessed.
Yes.
Amen. But he had to overcome that fear first, or it could have gone horribly, horribly wrong. Pastor Bob and Deb had a situation with their daughter. Don't know what was going on. Bob's running around, even forgot his shirt. But he wasn't worried about that. He didn't let fear take a hold of him. He's getting ready to leave. And And you know what? I hope the rest of you are. Because I kind of cringed when he said he's going back to Ghana. But I'm not cringing now. Because I've got a mental image of him being in Ghana and he's looking at all these little devils going, I've had it with you.
Amen.
And he's coming back and he's coming back blessed and whole.
That's right.
Fear will not get a hold of him. It will not get a hold of any of us here.
Amen.
Psalms 37:25 says, I have been young and now I'm old. Well, I don't receive that part. But the key to this is, yet I have not seen the righteous forsaken, nor his descendants begging bread. I don't care how old you are or how young you are. If you walk in faith and you're obedient and you keep your faith anchored in him and his word, he's not going to let you down.
That's right.
He's promised you he won't. But there's conditions. We gotta, this mentality going around that you can say a sinner's prayer and don't have to do anything. I have a question for people that believe that. Why did he inspire 66 books of the Bible to give us instructions on how to live?
Right.
We have to be obedient. We cannot let faith take in or take over. You know, faith was required all the way through this. The obedient faith, the kind that James talked about. The faith that says the Lord says to do this and trust him with the results. Perfect one is tithing. You know, the one place he says, test me. If you do this, I'll do this. I'm not afraid anymore to pay the tithes and stuff. I don't worry about the bills. I've never missed a bill. I've never missed a meal. I really missed the other podium. It hid you better. They say that the camera adds 10 pounds. It lies. I really look that way. But I'm working on it. Even though it was more than just her welfare, she had her child to think about too. She was obedient and she baked that cake for Elijah. Now here's the neat part. If you really study that story and realize that her faith continued not just then, but on a regular daily basis. She believed that every time she baked, that flour was coming back. That oil was coming back. She believed that no matter what it looked like in the natural, the prophet told her, if you do this, you'll never run out of the food. And she didn't. That's the kind of faith that you don't look at the size of the jar. You gotta look at the size of the God that's filling the jar.
Amen.
Sometimes jars can look huge. Sometimes if you need a certain thing, a little jar that big can look like a cake. But you don't look at the jar, you look at who's filling it. So what else can we expect in 2018? To be refreshed and restored. Psalms 23:2-3 says, He makes me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside the still waters. He restores my soul. Wow. What's going to be restored? My soul, my inner man, my emotions, my strength, my vitality. See, I'm not old yet. Don't laugh, your day's coming. In 2 Corinthians 4:16, Paul wrote, Therefore do not lose heart, even though our outward man is perishing, yet the inward man is being renewed day by day.
Hallelujah.
And there's times when you're going to wake up, and that's going to be a hard verse to, but you know what? Digest it and believe what it says anyway. The man in you is being restored daily. The inward man is not getting over. It's just getting, what's that word I'm looking for? Mature.
There you go.
The inward man is maturing. It is growing in Christ. It's not aging.
That's right.
Christ has no time, remember. It's not just that he takes care of our physical needs, he also takes care of our inner needs. He's all the comfort that we need. He gives rest for the weary. Hebrews 4:9 says that God provides a rest for the people of God. In Matthew 11:28, Jesus extends us an invitation to come to him, all you who are labor and heavy laden, and he will give you rest. Wow, that's an open invitation. I never looked at it that way before. That's an open invitation. If you're tired and weary, come to me. Trust me. I have a place of rest for you. So in 2018, I'm going to be restored and I'm going to rest. But there's 3 conditions to that rest. First, we got to come to Him. Don't do it on your own.
That's right.
Uh-oh. Casting all cares on Him. You know, we talk about prayer in this body, and I believe all of us understand that in prayer we get refreshed when we go through our prayers with Him. But sadly, the world out there offers all kinds of substitutes. Alcohol, drugs, entertainment, gambling. But all those temporary stress relievers, none of them bring forth long-term rest and satisfaction like He can. Nothing restores the soul in a healthy way beyond prayer and relationship with Him. You know, I love my wife, and she can certainly make me happy and put a smile on my face. And sometimes I just look at her and I know, I don't know what I did, but I know I messed up. I can just see it in her eyes. That, you know, they say behind every angry woman, there's a man. Don't have a clue what he did. I believe it. She can do a lot of things to restore me. She can do a lot of things to give me rest. But there's a rest that she cannot even start to give me that He can. If I just come to Him and quit trying to do it all on my own. If I submit to Him and take His yoke upon me and be totally sold out, totally surrendered to His will, totally obedient to what the things He says He does, I can have that rest. I might be able to learn how to talk without tying my tongue up here. And the last one of those conditions is you learn from Him. He said He is meek and lowly. A mindset of humility is conducive to rest. Think about that for a minute. How many people you know that are all the time, Rob, what's an opposite of humility? Arrogant?
Arrogant?
Yes.
Brazen.
You know.
Boastful?
There you go, boastful. How many of those looks like they've got a lot of peace and rest in their life? I found that most of them that are boastful and stuff like that are actually very insecure people.
Right.
That are trying to hide a lot of things. Pastor Rob's looking back against the wall. I'm not talking about
I'm a rest.
There you go. He's in that peaceful rest right now. Philippians 4:6 says, "Be anxious for nothing, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God. And the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and minds through Christ Jesus." Wow, wait a minute, I can have my mind guarded? You know, I've always known to guard my heart, but I really hadn't given much thought about that. I can walk in a peace that guards my mind? Does that mean when Satan comes at me and starts throwing things at me I shouldn't be thinking about, I can look up and say, no. I waste my time on you and I get my thought back on Him? I have the authority to do that? Wow, that's a peace that I really want to be part of. 2018, I also want to be led in the right directions. Psalms 23:4 said He leads me in the path of righteousness. Now notice something here. It says that He leads. It doesn't say He drives me in a path of righteousness. He says He leads me. He's not going to violate my will. He's not going to make me follow Him down a path of righteousness. A shepherd does not go out and beat the sheep and make them do what he wants. He leads them and they follow Him. They know His voice and they follow Him. God's the same way. He's going to lead us. He's not going to beat us. He's not going to force us. He's not going to take our free will. But I promise you this, He's going where we need to go. He's going to be where we need to be. If we'll follow Him, we'll end up in the right place. The neat part is, I don't got to find a way. I just got to follow Him. Yeah, I tell a story. And it's a true story. And she's already squirming. When we first got married, before they had maps and GPS and everything, we'd be going on a trip somewhere. And she'd be reading the map. And she'd go, "You want to take this exit?" "Okay." When you get to the top of the exit, take a left. "Well, I got where I take a right." And she goes, "Why do you do that?" I said, "Because you always give me the wrong directions." Well, one day we're driving down the road and I looked over and I said, honey, do me a favor. She said, what? I said, turn the map over. That's a true story. We got off of Springfield and went the wrong way. And that's when I realized, that I didn't say she did it all the time. That day she did have the map upside down. But you know what? All we have to do is follow him. I don't have to rely on a GPS or anything. I don't have to rely on my wife telling me where to go. Yeah, that's going to leave a mark. Pastor Bob would be proud. I'm in trouble. I don't have to find my way. I just have to follow him. He made it that simple. Why does he lead us in the right direction? Not because we deserve it, but because it brings the glory and the honor to his name. He does it because he desires to. He does it because he's chosen to do it. And he does it because he loves us. All we have to do is follow him. Pastor Rob, I'm about to agree with you. I think I don't know.
It's Bree. Whatever.
It's Bree. I agree with you. It's Bree.
Anybody wants to step in, that's fine.
2018, we also can expect to be safe and protected wherever he leads. In verse 4, it says, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. Is that saying that we're never going to have trials along the ways or difficulties or rough terrain? Oh, absolutely not. But sometimes, in order to get to the green pastures, we've got to walk through some barren valleys. To get to the mountaintop, sometimes you got to go through some low places first. But you know, one thing I've known about walking through a barren valley, I learned a long time ago that sometimes I had been in a valley or a desert, and I really was getting to the point where I thought, God, where are you? I'm just not feeling it, not feeling his presence, not hearing him. And it's an opportunity for doubt to come in and start pulling at me. But I learned something. When I get in that position and I start feeling that way, I start getting excited and I start smiling. Because really all it is I'm going through a training period and he's preparing me for something that's on the other side of that desert. So I don't get shook up about it anymore. It doesn't make me doubt my relationship with him. If anything, it motivates me. David said, where life takes me, I will not be afraid. See, God don't send you through a valley. God goes through the valley with you. Sometimes it may not feel like, remember the footsteps in the sand? I love that. And for those of you who haven't seen it or don't remember it, the story was there was God and Jesus are walking through the desert, and all of a sudden there's one set of footsteps. And he thought he was abandoned, only to find out that's where God carried him. We can also expect to enjoy abundant blessings. Verse 5 says, you prepared a table before me, a feast of good things in the presence of mine enemies. Can you imagine? Your enemies are out there starving to death, and they're sitting there looking at you, and you got a banquet table, a buffet, and they can't touch you or it. I remember Dave Reaver talking about when he was in Vietnam, and they go up river on those river boats. And the Vietnamese would be out of food. And, they'd be eating berries, whatever they could find, because they were out of food. And the sailors on those river boats, they knew that. So they would load guns up and fire chickens and stuff, just out of honoring us. But it made me think about that. Can you imagine? That's like sitting at your banquet table and your enemy is sitting over here and you're literally just throwing food away and they can't even get it. I'm worried now, Pastor Rob Vic, they're laughing like crazy.
Were they frozen chickens?
Probably. They weren't when they come out the end of that gun, believe me.
They were frozen.
They were definitely born in a blizzard. Ephesians 6 tells us we have enemies, but greater is he that is in us than he that is in the world. We understand, we realize that the Lord is always going ahead of us. He's already prepared everything in 2018. He's already set blessings on our path, and He's going to make Himself known to us in new, meaningful ways this year. 2018, your cup is not going to be half full or half empty. It's going to be overrunning.
That's right.
He's already set a table for you. Your head's anointed with oil, and there is more than enough. 2 more, and I'll get out of here real quick. I'll make them fast. That's going to be a Danny, but we can expect to be overtaken with goodness and mercy. Verse 6 says, surely goodness and mercy shall follow me. God is in the pursuit business. His blessings follow us. The word translated follow is radaf, and it means to run after. It's not something that lingers. It's something that chases you, and it's faster than you because it overtakes you. That's what the book says. That His blessings are going to overtake us. Problem is, too many people in the church today expect to be overtaken by sorrow and misery instead of goodness and mercy. And the devil works hard to convince us that that's what's going to happen. And sometimes, I'm going to be honest, things happen that we got to step back away from it and just start proclaiming the blessings. Because in the natural, you're wondering how you're going to get through something. I mean, you know, when Kim and Rob got their basement flooded, they had to step back, look at that a little bit and say, okay, God, you got my back. I don't know how, but I'm putting my faith in you. This is going to be covered. And it was. But that opportunity was there for them to get into doubt. But it didn't take a hold of them. David gave a revelation and said, surely goodness and mercy will follow me all the days of my life. Not during my youth, not during just my middle age, but in the old age, all the days of my life, Danny. That was God's promise in Deuteronomy 28:12. We can also enjoy the last one, fellowship with God and His people. And I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. David considered that extremely important. Psalm 65:4, he says to God, blessed is the man you choose and cause to approach you, that he may dwell in your courts. We shall be satisfied with the goodness of your house, of your holy temple. There is a satisfaction that's found here in the Lord and in the fellowship of like believers that cannot be found anywhere else. This morning, we have a friend in Lexington that is surrounded by family. And I don't mean biological. I have no doubt that lady is surrounded by her church family. And they're loving on her and they're carrying her to get through this. Satan would love to deprive her of that. But your church family, when they're doing what they're supposed to, will not allow that to happen. When things happen here, you know, I'm not going to go there. It doesn't matter. When one of us goes through one thing, we all should go through it. Because we should all be lifting each other up. That's what it says in Hebrews. It says, let us consider one another to provoke unto love and to good works, not forsaking and assembling ourselves together as manner of some, but exhorting one another, and so much the more as you see the day approaching. David considered it was so important that he made this a priority in his life. He loved corporate worship. He longed to be in the presence of God, and he delighted himself in the Lord and in his house, his God family. And he expected to enjoy that all the days of his life. So real quickly, 2018, we are expecting to have all your needs met, to be refreshed and restored, to be led in the right direction, to be safe and protected, to enjoy abundant blessings, to be overtaken with goodness and mercy, to enjoy fellowship with God's people. All of that is true for one reason and one reason only. The Lord is my shepherd. Yeah. Rob, put Psalms 23 up there, would you? Yeah, Psalms 23. Okay, scroll down. You keep it scrolling. Would you ready? I want everybody to repeat this with me. The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. He makes me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside the still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in the paths of righteousness for His name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil, my cup runs over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. And we proclaim it in Jesus' name for 2018 and beyond.
Yes, amen.
That's it, I'm done.
Hallelujah.